Okay, so let's take a look at our next examples. I think these next examples are really nice because it's going to require us to do something a little different, right? Let's say we had, right, something like f of x equals x squared. Let's also call this example A. F of x equals x squared minus 8x plus 12. Right? And we also wanted to graph this, right? Let's say graph. All right, so the problem with this one is that it's definitely not, right? It is not in the form that it needs to be. F of x equals ax minus h squared plus k. Right, and you might be thinking, well, maybe it looks like this previous example. It definitely does not, because it has a middle term, right? If it didn't have that middle term, then we could do what we did in example D. But because it has a middle term, we can't do that, right? So when it comes to this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to find the vertex first, right? And there's actually a formula that we can do for the vertex in regards of the x value, right? The vertex x value is negative b over 2a. That is our x value, right? So let's take a look here. Right, we have f of x equals, that's like a 1 in front of that x squared, minus 8x plus 12. We call this our a, that's our b, and that's our c. So we can say it's x equals negative, right? Because the formula is a negative. So you need to know this formula. Let's really note that. It's negative. Our b value is a negative 8, right? Over 2 times 1. So negative and negative make it a positive 8 over 2, which means your x is a 4, right? So when it comes to the vertex, I'll put some space down here. We know that our x value is 4. Now what we need to do here is we need to find the y value. Well, all we're going to do is we're just going to plug that 4 back into our regular function, right? We're going to use this. Remember, f of x is a fancy way of saying y, right? So I'm just rewriting it, replacing f of x with y. And now I'm going to replace each one of these x's with 4, right? Replace each one of those x's with 4. So y equals 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 12. And now from there, all you're doing is just you're doing some nice simple math. You should be able to put that in your calculator pretty easily, right? You have 4 squared minus 8. You multiply that by 4. You add 12. And this will give you y to equal negative 4. So now you know your vertex. And now you know the axis of symmetry. Right, which is x equals 4. The only thing is that you don't know if this is a min or a max yet, right? A min, or we actually do. Let's go back here. Let me erase this, right? We can see that we have an A, B, and a C. We see that our A is a positive 1, which means it's going to open up. So we definitely know that, right? We know that it opens up because A is 1. That's going to open up. And when it opens up, we talked about this earlier. This is our minimum, which is a negative 4. But we're graphing this, right? We are graphing this. And on your homework, they're going to want you to graph using 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points. So, what we know right now is we know we have this 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, negative 4. This is our vertex. Okay. We just want to pick an x value, any x value to the left, and any x value to the right. Any one, right? So let's make a table. I'm sorry, let me take some stuff off so it doesn't look confusing. Right? So let's make a table. What can we pick to the left of 4? Right? 0 seems pretty easy. You can pick anything you want, but I'm going to pick 0 because I think 0 is really easy. Okay? And then what are we going to pick to the right of 4? Well, I mean, let's pick something really small. How about 5, right? 5 should work. And all we do is just plug that back into our equation, right? Y equals 0 squared minus 8 times 0 plus 12. Then again, y equals 5 squared minus 8 times 5 plus 12. All right, and let's see what we get. All right, once again, some nice easy calculations. You should be able to put that in your calculator. You do this first one, and it should just give you 12. Right, you do your next one, 5 squared minus 8 times a 5 plus a 12. That gives you a negative 3. Right, so we can definitely plot that. We have 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right, and you have 5 and then negative 1, 2, 3. There you go. So now you got some points. You can go ahead and plot them, right? Now we're doing it a little bit more exact. Okay, so a nice example of plotting. What happens if these numbers don't fall in your graph? Well, then just pick a different x value. Pick a different x value. So it should be nice and easy. Let's take a look at another example. How about we do this time? What would be a good one? How about I want you to graph. Let's go with f of x equals negative 1 over 2x squared minus a 3x plus 5 over 2. Right, so we're going to have to do the same thing. Let's identify A, B, and C. This A is a negative, so we know it's going to go down. We don't have an H or we don't have a K. Right, so we need to find our vertex. Specifically the x value, right, it equals negative b over 2 times a. So it's a negative. Our b is at negative 3. 2 times negative 1 over 2. So this is x equals a negative and negative, make it positive on the top. Right, you just multiply 2 times 1/2. You should be able to do that pretty easily, right? 2 over 1 times negative 1 over 2 cancels. You get negative 1, or you can even use your calculator, right? Your x value is negative 3. Right, so remember we find our y by replacing the x's with that negative 3. Once again, I mean, it should be a nice problem. You should be able to input this in your calculator and get to work here pretty quickly. So you have y equals, and don't forget your fractions in parentheses, right? So open parentheses, negative 1 over 2, close parentheses, and another open parentheses, negative 3, close parentheses to the power of 2, minus 3, open parentheses, negative 3, close parentheses, plus, you got this 5 over 2, so also show that as a fraction with parentheses around it, and you should get your y to equal 7. So now your x is negative 3, and your y, I'm sorry, I don't know why I was putting negative, your y is 7. All right, this gives us the axis of symmetry equation. Right, x equals negative 3. Right, over here, this gives you, once again, our A we found it to be what? Negative, our a is negative 1 over 2, right? So you know that it's going to open down because it opens down. We have a maximum value of 7. Okay, now it comes to graphing. Right, so we have our value negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. All right, so once again, we want to pick a number to the left and a number to the right. Okay. So we make our table. What do we want to pick to the left of negative 3? How about something really easy like negative 4? It's just something right next to it. Okay. And then what do we want to pick to the right of it? How about 0? 0 seems like it'd be pretty easy. Right? And we go back to our equation. Let's not forget our equation, which is this one, right? That's our equation. So we're just going to rewrite that equation so we don't forget about it because I'm all the way down here, right? So it's y equals negative 1 over 2 x squared plus, I'm sorry, negative, what is it? Let me make sure. Negative 1 over 2 x squared minus 3x plus 5 over 2. Okay, x squared minus 3x plus 5 over 2. And we just start replacing. So y equals negative 1 over 2 and negative 4. I'm putting parentheses around it, just kind of showing the way that if you're using your calculator, you should be putting it in there like that. All right. So you get negative 1 over 2. Then, so just putting your calculator just that form should be nice and easy. But you should be able to work it out as well. This gives us 6.5, right, is what I got. Negative 1 over 2, negative 4 squared minus 3, negative 4 plus 5 over 2. Okay. We do our next one, negative 1 over 2, 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus a 5 over 2. All right, so doing that one also gives us a decimal of 2.5. All right, so what we see here is we get a value of a negative 4 and then a 6.5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 7, so 6.5 is right in the middle there. All right, then we get 0, and this is 1, 2, that's 3, 2.5 is right there. Once again, we talked about how this graph was going to go down, so we can clearly see our graph going down. All right. A couple things that I want to note is if these numbers aren't nice numbers, just pick a different number. Right? Remember, you can always pick different numbers. You always want to try to get nice numbers. So just keep that in mind while you're working this. And if you have any further questions, you can always just email me. Thank you.